Welcome to the LiveCast Conversations With. On this show, my guests and I explore the bumps and triumphs of their journey to extract the gems from their experiences, because success leaves clues, and today we turn those clues into billboards for you. I'm your host, Gene Bernier, founder of Pealed Back, speaker and co-active coach, guiding leaders to ruthlessly pursue a life worth living. Welcome everybody to episode 96 of the LiveCast Conversations With. As always, I'm Gene, your host. With me today is Derek Strokon. Derek has been a natural salesman since the age of 5, selling lemonade from his home. He has always been inspired by the power of the sales process and finding unique and creative ways to inspire others. With a retail, automotive, restaurant, and financial service background, Derek has led teams to success by simplifying solutions, removing obstacles, and integrating processes. He is currently in the final stages of writing his book, Stop Stalling and Start Selling, due out in the fall of 2022. Derek, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
That's an easy one, especially another British Columbia fan. And let's talk about Stop Stalling and Start Selling. That's an interesting title.
This book has been in production for about 3 years, and I think, like everybody else who writes a book, it probably sits dormant for 2.5 years and does nothing.
That's part of the process.
I think it must be part of the process, because I've written 40% of this book I wrote in 4 days.
Oh wow!
But the rest of it took 3 years. So I think it's the natural progression of things, and so many people I've talked to, and I think the timing has just been that this is when we need to bring this book out and launch it, and it's super exciting. Honestly, like the entire book is just 500-600 word short stories about experiences in sales that I've lived through, and there's takeaway lessons from each of those things, and things that we can bring to the table and actually just have a conversation, right? Like life is the best teacher, time is the best teacher, experience is the best teacher. So if you can read about somebody else's, then it gives us that opportunity to just, cut the timeline down a little bit. So I'm excited.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And the snicker part be like, well, there's definitely, I guess, the stop stalling was around, be like, well, I guess I can finish this last 40% and get right into it, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So one of the chapters that you shared with me, we'll just kind of jump right into it. Sure. I think a lot of people could resonate with it, where you're talking about getting that phone call, be like, your job is done. Sitting in your truck and having to face what that was all about.
Right.
Like that's on the surface, that's a horrible day for anybody, but it does happen a lot. And to be able to take it from where that was to where you are, I think that's a real powerful story to share here today.
Yeah, I think we all do it, right? We all have the down days, but this particular day was the worst. So I think you end up, you realize, like, as a traditional male family, or with a traditional kind of environment with the 2 kids, and my wife stays at home, and to try and figure out what we're going to do and how we're going to survive and how we're going to thrive. And I, a lot in the book we talk about the hourglass, and the hourglass is a really interesting microcosm of life, because we've got all the grains of sand that have yet to fall. We have all the grains of sand that have fallen, and we try and create these patterns out of the chaos that exists. But as the grains of sand fall, they're just random, right? Mm-hmm. Every event is random. No event is linked to an event in the past. As a human, we're the ones who create that pattern and that connection. Right. But being able to have the ability to rotate this hourglass and understand that in between the past and the future, there exists this moment of nothing. And nothing is so powerful. To actually have a clear understanding that we have a break between the past and the future. And I'd been in a corporate environment for 16 years. So I figured, well, I'm going to be in a corporate environment for another.
Yeah.
and and we're in that pattern, and that's a pattern that we've created ourselves. But to be able to understand that there is a break between the grains of sand in that moment of nothing, where we can actually create a separation between the past and the future, and what that does for us is allows us the opportunity to open up the potential for everything to change.
Ooh, that feels like a one of those moments.
Yeah.
It,
So
how did in that moment when this all like did you have the awareness that you were tilting the hourglass at the time, or was this something that you've kind of explored since?
I think it's probably what I'm most passionate about right now
Yeah,
is understanding that, because right, one of the chapters we talk about how growth happens at the bottom of the curve.
yeah.
We typically don't change when things are good. But right,
Oh, I
you take
love where
Les
this is
Brown and
going.
his comment about that the most ideas, the most entrepreneurial ideas in the world are in the graveyard,
Yeah,
because people didn't just jump and do it. And it's honest, like I could see myself committing the rest of my business career to exploring this concept, to go, how do we help people who are living in an environment where things are good but not great, right? How do we help create change in that environment rather than waiting for us to hit the pitfall,
oh, and there's so much space to play in that shift from good to great. I'm pretty sure got the book on my
right?
shelf here behind me somewhere. A great book to read if anybody's interested to explore this topic more. But that's interesting, is like when things are good, like there isn't that emphasis to be like, oh, I'm gonna go like do this improvement, or maybe it's like really small incremental like shifts. But you're right, like that's not where the wild and crazy ideas going. I got to figure out how to survive and then thrive. Be like, once you kind of
Right.
hit that thrive, what I'm hearing here is just like it's almost like that coast time. Be like, it's you're off the offense line from there.
Right. Yeah. I think honestly, like that ability to pivot and shift and to create an environment, and we do it so much in business.
Yeah,
I'm making good money, so I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, or my business is running efficiently. I have a coaching client that I'm working with right now, and we analyzed how much money he left on the table last year, because last year he made more money than he'd ever made.
yeah.
And we went back and we calculated his leads, and he left 27% of his business revenue on the table.
Ooh. I
And
knew that was going to be a number that was going to make even me uncomfortable. I'm not that person, but like that's that's a real story.
right. And it happens every day because we don't have that, right, that shift or that ability to continually focus on driving. And it's not about exhausting yourself, and it's not
No.
about overworking. And we've made a move to live in a resort, and I can mountain bike every day, or I can, fortunately I got in 89 days on the mountain last year, which was,
That's a good ski week or
yeah, it
season.
was pretty outstanding. That's more skiing than I've done in the last 25 years combined. So we've definitely made this conscious shift. But right, this shift came out of chaos, or this
Yeah,
shift came out of turmoil for me. And so many of us live in that world where you go, had we done it 5 years back? And it's not about being disappointed that we didn't. It's
yeah.
about understanding that the next time we start to recognize that a shift is necessary, that we can make it on demand.
That's interesting, right? And bringing that awareness to it, because I think there is a component of you get so like, oh my god, I just don't have to like fight every moment. Be like, I want to get into that comfort space, and by default, I think that's where humans want to be. But it's
Yeah.
also like that's not where any of the rewards are. And I love the add-on to that is like sometimes people confuse that with this hustle culture. Like you
Yeah.
got to be one of those early people in the grave. No, but you what I'm hearing from you is there's ways to still look at this, appreciate what you got, and go, what else?
Right. Yeah. What's next?
What's next? What's next from here?
Yeah. Susan Scott, I don't know if you've read her book, Fierce Conversations.
No.
Brilliant. Again, another brilliant book, but she talks about gradually and then suddenly.
Oh,
And I think it's such a powerful message to consider. And her message in her book is about that we succeed or we fail gradually and then suddenly.
yeah.
But it applies to every element of our lives,
Uh-huh.
right? I don't just love my wife because of one thing that happened, right? It's because of every day we get to spend time together, every day we get to interact, every
Yeah.
day we get to share that love, and then all of a sudden that love happens,
Right. And then
and
it's
that
like that
gradually and then
that
suddenly
hockey stick
process.
is what I'm
But
hearing
it's
from
really
that.
interesting. Oftentimes it's that big chaotic moment,
Yeah.
but it doesn't have to be.
So how has the idea of like that big chaotic moment changed for you over the last couple years?
It's really interesting because we started this company, Sacred Line, we started in February of 2022. So we're very, very, we're still in our infancy
Four,
stage,
four
but
months, yeah.
yeah, the company has grown incredibly well. We're 7 people across 2 countries. We're operating in both official languages in Canada, which is really exciting. We've got a pretty significant growth plan ahead of us. But to realize how much you can do so quickly as long as you have a plan and a strategy. And I think that falls back to process,
Hmm.
right? I had a coaching call actually just this morning, and my client, she was talking to me and she goes, why do people fail? And I sat there and I'm like, it's passion or purpose,
Yeah.
and it's process. And those are the two things that shift. Those are the two things that change us.
Yeah.
Um, and those are the reasons that we either succeed or that we fail. And the process is what gives you confidence in your passion or in your purpose.
Yeah.
Because if you have a system default, right? If you're standing on the edge of the pier and you've got that process that you can fall back on, well, then you're going to be fine, right? But if you just love it and you're going, you're going wild, trying to make it happen, but you don't have that process in behind you,
Yeah.
then you can sure succeed real quick, but you can fail pretty quick right after that.
Well, I think that's interesting. There is like you can do a lot from that space of winging it, and I think sometimes in that place of chaos is like it's okay to like you have to go experiment and do a lot of taste testing to find out. Be like after a chaotic thing has happened, be like, well, what does this now mean for you and for your life? You're gonna have to go do some tasting. But once you start
Yeah.
to figure that out, even doing that tasting, start spending that time to build the process in and around what is this looking like? So how can I get better at figuring out where that passion and my ability to execute on this passion, what's the cross section there?
Right. I think it's kind of like what we chatted about this briefly offline about how the business has evolved. And to go, I thought I was going to be a solopreneur, business consultant, and business coach. And all of a sudden, 4.5 months later, here we are with 7 people on this
Yeah.
team. But identifying the opportunities that exist out in the marketplace and being able to execute on them with a intentional strategy
Mm-hmm.
is right. It gives us that ability to pivot there.
Yeah. Was that something that's come naturally to you, Derek? Is like being able to build that strategy? Like sometimes it's hard for people to be like, okay, where is my North Star? And it sounds like, and based on the experience that you're having, is like, well, a that's a bit powered by your understanding of the process of building and operating, but like without having a real clear North Star, it's you could have all the processes in the world, and if you can't get everybody excited about going, I'm jumping on the Sacred Line ship, let's go, right?
Yeah.
Like,
It definitely is. It's the basis of the company. And I think I've realized that I have a skill set to be able to bring that to the marketplace and to be able to bring that to the clients that I work with to help them find out what is sacred. And sacred
mhm,
was a really interesting word to use. And
that's
my mom, of all people, who supported me in everything that I've ever done, she said, don't use sacred. It's too dangerous of a word.
ooh. So tell
And
well, let's dive in for a moment. But what does sacred mean to you? Because it words have power. So tell me about the
yeah,
power
it's
behind
it's
that word for
definitely
you.
it's a super strong word. So it actually has its origins at Sun Peaks Resort here
Okay.
in BC, and Sacred Line is actually one of the most brilliant runs on the mountain. So I was going through that. I was trying to think of a business name, and I had a real boring business name, and it was an ABC acronym. And I thought, here's a real whopper of a name. And I realized that that needed to shift. It needed to not be our identity as
Yeah.
our brand. So I opened the trail map and I just started reading through the names of the runs on the mountain. And Sacred Line popped up, and it's really interesting because Sacred Line is the only run on the mountain that is on the trail map, but there's no physical sign for it
Oh,
out on the
interesting.
mountain. So it's got a real interesting origin story to it, but the concept behind, or the evolution, the form that it's taken, is really having a very clear understanding between what is sacred and what's just important.
Ooh, that sounds like a
And
distinction there.
yeah, most people don't know. Most people haven't thought about it. They haven't identified it. But what are your non-negotiables? What are you willing to live with? What are you willing to live without?
Yeah.
What are you willing to give up, and what are you not willing to give up in your life? And that those sacred conversations, they really have taken on a very interesting definition and interesting meaning in the conversations to have, right? In Oren Lyons, another great quote, but he talks about, in the absence of the sacred, nothing is sacred,
Mm.
and everything's for sale.
Oof.
And I think, I think we've lived that. I think this is what the great, is it the resignation, or is it the great realization?
I think it's all the above.
Yeah.
I think that it would starts with that chaos of people. I think it's more that great realization. When if this first all went down, I'm like, this is the great reset. Like outside of like a world economic component of it, be like, this is a
Right.
time for like CEOs all the way to the janitor to be like, do I love what I'm doing? Like,
Right.
when was like the world never had like just a 3 month pause going, do I go back to doing this again?
Right. Yeah.
And like the conversations that have to come from that, right? Like that led to that the great resignation. Now, does that
Right.
lead to like the great, um, you know, reflection upon it and go, oh, did I maybe I jumped too soon, right?
Yeah.
Who knows? But I think knowing what's sacred over what's important, that's an interesting, like that still stands out as a really interesting place to be, because people always speak about, oh, here's an important conversation.
Right.
Well, how does then that tie back to like your sacredness, right? Or for me, it's just like a principled life, more from like a stoic side of it. Is like
Right.
what are at the end of the day? How do you want to be in this world? You can do all the incredible things, but how do you want
Yeah.
to be? And that's what I hear from your definition of sacred.
Yeah. It's, I think we get caught up in it. We get caught up in living a good life,
Yeah,
and to realize that what you're not willing to give up. And part of it for us was a shift to this resort lifestyle. I want to be able to ski when I want to ski. I want to be able to, right? My kids have gym class. Gym class for the kids is, we actually just go, it's all parent driven, and we take the kids
yeah.
skiing.
Oh, cool.
So none of the kids at this school can catch a football, but they're all incredible skiers and snowboarders. So
And probably during the summertime, incredible downhill mountain bikers.
yeah, absolutely. But to go that we had made a conscious decision, and I think decides another real interesting one about that suffix CIDE.
Oh,
So if you think about regicide, homicide, suicide, pesticide, they're all about killing things,
yeah,
right? To kill the king, to kill yourself, to kill someone else, to kill an animal or a bug or whatever.
yeah.
And that word decide, which is to put to death all other options. And I think it's such a
Wow.
powerful word, and it's another, right. It's another word like sacred, where it deserves a lot more respect. I decided to go to the movies, or I decided to get married, or I decided to start a business. But
That's oh, dude, like that's a mic drop moment there. That's a thinker. To
yeah,
decide is to kill all other options.
yeah. I heard it years ago, and I can't even remember the source.
Yeah.
Um, it ends up being a chapter in the book, which is really exciting. But that concept, to just have that understanding of going, I decided to be successful today. I decided that I'm going to win. I decided that I'm going to, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be a business owner, or I'm going to be
Yeah.
the best husband, or I'm going to be the best partner that I can.
Yeah.
Um, it's another real strong word.
Man, that's uh, that's a place I need to explore a little bit. Like
Right.
that's like yeah, like so from this place of being sacred, making those decisions, it almost feels like there's like that superpowers that choice of making the ultimate decision about what stands and what doesn't, because instead of saying, well, I don't know what's sacred, I have a few things that might be important, but there's no
Right.
like hell yeses baked into this, and if there's no hell yes and then there's no hell no, be like you bring the sacredness to it, be like, here's the 5 things, they hit
Right.
this tells me we're on the right path, everything else cut it.
Right.
And then you're not also from that tilt of the sand, all of a sudden this piece of sand doesn't really matter.
Right.
Not that it doesn't, but like the significance of it is not a place to go back and worry about. You talked about looking to the future and to the past. Be like, well, the future all of a sudden gets a lot more brighter when you're like, I'm good to make my choices because I know where they're coming from. That's what I'm hearing from this.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it. It's such an important realization, that, right? That moment of nothing, where there is no grain of sand, and to go, that's the barrier, or the boundary between the past and the future. And the past is over. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah,
The future hasn't happened yet. And we've got, right, we can work towards something, and it's not about not having goals or any of that.
yeah,
But to understand that if the grain of sand that's still at the top of the hourglass, at what point is it going to come through the net?
yeah,
Right? At what point are these things going to align, and then what's that going to mean for our lives?
yeah,
But we have the ability to create whatever it is that we want to create, and we have the power to change it. We have the power to have the impact on that. We have the power to decide to do it.
yeah,
And I think, like, it's honestly, like, it's where I'm having so much fun in my work right now, because these are the conversations that I get to have every day, and to help other people see where that opportunity lies, and that, like, to see them grow and to see them flourish is by far it's the most wicked thing to just watch. So
oh, no doubt to be able to have people have those like aha moments, or even, for me, I love the oh shit moments. It's just like,
yeah.
what just happened here? You can't
Yeah.
you then you never look at the rest of the grain, and especially that nothing when it's tilted the same.
Yeah.
From this place of like sacred and this empowerment of what a decision truly means, has all this understanding for you refactored how you look and set goals and set that vision?
It's made it so clear how attainable they are. I think without that understanding, I didn't have the clarity on how possible things were.
Oh,
To look at the book, right, and to go, I wrote the titles to each chapter over the last 3 years,
yeah,
and I knew I had to write the stories. And it was about last July that I actually started writing, and in between July and March, I wrote 10 chapters. But starting to have those moments of clarity, of
hmm,
understanding what's sacred, and sacred has a religious origin, but it doesn't have to,
yeah,
right? Absolutely, it can, but it is not mutually exclusive to fall into that spiritual realm.
right,
Um, Sacred is about your non-negotiables. It's about setting parameters under which that you operate as a human. And the moment that you start to have clarity on that is where all of this opportunity opens up. Because I'm willing to go here and I'm not willing to go here. I think, if we look at this as a business example, to talk about your niche client market, right? Right now, I'm working almost exclusively with financial advisors. It's the world that I know. It's the world that I'm celebrated rather than tolerated.
Yeah.
It's an environment that I have ultimate confidence in, and that may shift at some point. But right now, these are the two lines that I'm operating in because we have to be strategically aligned to go forward.
Right.
Right. So you can go. I think this is a Greg McEwenism about, going an inch in a million directions or going a million inches in one direction.
Yeah. I think there's a similar thing about Elon Musk talks about the power of a company is like when you get all the employees as a vector pointing to the same place, that's when you get acceleration, right? And I like the inch, all the inches stacked up or all spread all over.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think, it's continuing to shift my perspective. It's continuing to shift my ability, and even just because I'm having this conversation so much more frequently that it's in my realm, it's in my reality a lot more
Yeah.
than it used to be. And to be able to take those moments and share those moments with others. And I think, that's part of what I'm excited about with the book, is because the book takes a number of these stories and puts them together in very, they're easy digestible chunks,
Yeah.
which is super, super cool. And they're not it's not a 35-step process, it's not a 12-step process. The book was supposed to be 50 chapters and it ended up being 48,
That's
and
a
I'm just fine with
good
that.
amount of stories.
Yeah, yeah.
And listening to this as well, like when you're talking about like from earlier, you talked about decision being the thing that kills all the other uh, opportunities. I think was the word that you used,
Yeah.
but like mixing this into where we started as well is like you still understanding the difference between evaluating where you could go next, right? Because maybe some people may hear this go, well, how does this align with where they were going? You can't get too comfortable if you want to have like that continued and explosive and impactful growth versus
Yeah.
playing within what's sacred and going, we're never moving. This is what's sacred, right? This is where we go.
Yeah. We're on forever home number 3 right now. So maybe that's what puts that into perspective. But again, we've got the ability to shift and pivot. I'd love if
Mm,
we could spend the rest of our lives here.
yeah,
It would be a great environment to be in, to grow the Sacred Line Coalition into a incredible business, to bring other things to the forefront, but
yeah,
to be incremental and strategic along the way.
right,
Right? I think there's a difference between being stuck where you are, or being strategic about doing one thing versus being stuck.
yeah,
Right? Right now, I'm incredibly strategic about the steps that we're taking, with the steps with the book, with the steps with the company, with the things that right. My kids are 8 and 10 years old.
yeah. Great
They're not
ages.
going to want to ski with dad for much longer. So I'm going to do as much as I can to spend the time with them at this stage. But each stage and season is going to evolve and move forward.
Right.
So sacred can change.
Oh, and I like that, like the metaphor of using your forever houses too, right? Like each of those homes played a role, and they had a story, and there was a richness to it, and
Yeah.
as you move, be like, well, that's the going. Okay, here's the next story, and then you're bringing it back into the confines of like, this is what's sacred now from here, and part of what's sacred by the sounds of it is that we can reevaluate and amend or adjust this to mean something more, and how we use this then to strategically deploy our effort and our execution so that everything gets back to those inches stacking up and
Yeah.
takes you that 100 miles versus barely beyond a radius.
Right. I think that incremental shift, that's the necessary, right, evolutionary ability of us as humans to be able to continually improve and to continually process where we're at and what shift do we need to make.
Yeah.
But I think there's so many of us, and I was guilty of this in the past as well, that sat there and go, well, I don't know what direction to go.
Mm.
Right? I could make $1 million selling muffins on eBay, or right, selling something on Amazon, or I
Yeah.
could, you know, find a whatever, and
Yeah.
I can make my money doing that. But it has that almost debilitating ability to create stagnation.
Well, and I hear this. What I hear within this from you as well is like again that word decide and the power of what it's chopping off comes up because we do have like in the world we live in, we do have choice paralysis. There's too many choices. There's enough studies to show be like you put four options on a tryout table versus 10, be like, well the ones that are four are going to outsell because people don't go. I don't know what to choose.
Right.
Right? And sometimes you just have to go, I don't know, so I guess we're going to take this one.
Yeah.
Going to go find out. And the other part that keeps jumping up from me, I think, which is going to be helpful for some leaders and business owners sometimes, is that they go chasing after shiny objects. But
Yeah.
within this bounds, what I'm hearing from you about your success, what I'm getting from this is like, you guys know where you're going, and you've killed by making that decision. Be like, we know that this is the place we're going until we have it agreed that this strategic plan needs to be adjusted. The
Right.
rest of it, we're not even looking.
No.
And you're blowing past everybody else, going, could I make money over here? Could I make money over here? You're like constantly doing this lateral shift, and you're accelerating.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we're working on it, which is exciting, and it'll pivot and it'll shift and it'll grow and it'll evolve, but that continual pursuit of enhancement.
Yeah.
And we never reach perfect,
No.
right? Like take the Mercedes. I don't know if you remember Mercedes had a slogan. It was a couple of years ago, but they still use it actively. It says the best or nothing.
Mm.
And to me, it's such a bunch of horse shit because you're never gonna actually get there,
Yeah.
right? And from their inclination, the idea was that do your best job or just don't do your job.
Yeah.
But that conceptual piece of thinking that this utopia exists, it doesn't.
No.
And but we do have the ability to always continue to inch forward and to move and to pivot, and but you've got to take a specified unified direction
Yeah.
and get active and do something. And I think that really comes back to the premise of the book about stop stalling, start selling. And it's fun. The book opens up, and I don't know if this is the spoiler alert on it, but it just the book opens up and says, if you want to know the secret sauce to sales, is go sell something. And then I just say, there you go, you're done. You don't got to read the rest of the book. Now you know the secret.
Yeah.
But it's that understanding of your purpose, understanding what's sacred to you, implementing the processes into that, and then that's what drives us forward to create profit in the business.
Yeah. And I think there's reading a book, Don Miller's book about Hero on a Mission, and he talks a lot in about Viktor Frankl's, man. What? Oh, now I can't remember the title of his book, which is crazy. Man Seeking Purpose, but within it, he always refers back to these sections of the formula where it's like you gotta have the purpose and you gotta have a challenge. So I hear the purpose, and the process is like this challenge, like something worthy to go lift. That's
Right.
within it, and those two things you combine it, that's like that becomes that magic formula for success and happiness and going, what's my purpose? Be like, I know what it is. It's delivering on all these things.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah. That's it's interesting. So the idea of stop stalling, this seems to like just reverberate through everything that you've said. And did you say you had the title of the book for the last 3 years or the chapters? Like at what point
I
did the
had the chapters. And I didn't know what it was going to be called. And it was really interesting. I'm part of a book club, a publishing book club that's helping me self-publish, which is amazing.
yeah
The book was just going to be called "You Don't Need to Read This Book," because in reality you don't,
yeah
right? Are you going to be fine 100%? Are you still going to sell 100%? And originally that was the working title of the book, was "You don't need to read this book,
Yeah.
but you should." And it's that's shifted and become the subtitle. But the story behind "Stop Stalling and Start Selling" actually came from an experience that I had, and this was back when I was in the financial services world, and I called our top seller, and he was the number one guy in the country, and I'm like, I want to come out and I'm going to have lunch with you, and I want to learn all your secrets because you're amazing.
Yeah.
And um, this guy lived, it was about a 4.5 hour trip each way to go and visit this guy.
Yeah.
And he said, maybe we'll do this, and you come and we'll have lunch, and I'll tell you some things, and I'm sure we'll have a nice time. And he goes, it will take you, 4 hours to get here, and then we have lunch for 1 hour, and then it take you 4 hours to get home. And he goes, why don't you just take that 10 hour and go sell something? So it's from that story that I thought, you know what, that's the identity of the book. And the book has so many other sub stories and little journeys that we go on, and there's no organization to it, because again, it's just lived experience.
A collection of all these experience stories that you've had.
Yeah,
And,
but the through line or the draw to this was really about get out and do it.
yeah,
Get out and do it. And if you screw it up, then do it different.
I love that.
Right? But
and appreciate that if you've never done it, be like, the screw up's part of the sweet journey of it, right? Yeah, sometimes it sucks on the surface, be like, but you need the screw ups, because that's what's,
right.
again, that's that movement and that power to move from your position. If you're willing to go play in the muck, you're gonna have so much more richness for it. And I
Yeah.
mean richness in life, but when you put that out there, and when you stop stalling and start selling from that place, you're probably going to have some richness in the bank account as well for
Right.
it.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point about richness, because the profits is a big part of the prop value proposition that we bring forward in Sacred Line. But profit is not always money.
Yeah.
Profit's the quality of life that you live. Profit is the time that you get to spend with your family. It's the health, right? And that's the other old saying about if you don't take care of your health, right,
Yeah.
you're gonna end up at the end of your life going, oh man, I probably should have spent more time focused on health. And I think that's amazing. If you look at the mental health movement, the physical health movement that has changed because of COVID, the realization that an hour and a half commute each way is not necessary,
Yeah.
but the quality time with your wife is important. And I look at that, and um, that is the key,
Hmm.
is to understand from a definition standpoint, what does profit mean.
Yeah.
I think it's a really important consideration, because you can have all the money in the world and not have a very good life.
Oh, there's a lot of very wealthy, miserable people out there. Money doesn't necessarily solve that, right? And coming
No.
to the grips of it now, saying that, there are also people who are in like that survival bucket, be like, that message doesn't resonate. But like once you're in outside of like survival, be like, that then you got to really be thinking about that word thrive again. Be like, well, what does it mean to thrive,
Yeah.
right? And then you tie the word profit is like this life profit line is like, well, it's much more than what you've got, the dollar figures that are attached to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe this is a good time to quote some Kanye in here, but it's a line you've probably never realized. But the song "The Good Life," and he's got a line in that song, and he goes, "Having money's not everything. Not having it is."
Yeah.
And I thought it's such a great definition of how to understand that you still need enough,
Yeah.
right? So having the money isn't everything, but not having money, that is everything,
Yeah.
right? That does suck, and it does beat you down. But there's a level of comfort that we can eclipse
Yeah.
to go, okay, cool, now I want to scale back.
Yeah.
And now I want to spend my time enjoying. Think of Tim Ferriss's concept of right? Living life as a series of mini retirements,
That's always a
and
cool concept.
taking
Yeah.
those, right? Take a break and
Yeah.
take some time off. Take a month off. Go work remotely.
Change
Uh,
something.
yeah,
Well, you can change yourself and change your environment. You do one of those two things. Stuff, the output is different. That's just how
yeah,
the formula works. It's just math. You change one of these two variables,
right.
the end result is different.
That's
You
really
don't
cool.
change it, well, you already know what the answer is, and if you don't like that, you know what you got to do.
Right? Yeah. If you don't like you where you are, then move.
Pretty much.
You're not a tree. So,
Well, Derek, how I said at the start before we got started here, I was going to look and be like, we're going to be at that 40-minute mark, and we blew
right?
into that 40 minutes. Man, I knew this was going to be a great conversation. So
Well,
thank you
it's been
so
awesome. Thank
much
you.
for exploring this today and going around the decisions and sacredness and playing about what can happen when you power those two with strong processes.
Yeah.
So before we continue on to the last question of the show, this is time to give a shout out to you. So, how can people connect with you and maybe a quick, who are you looking for Sacred Line? Who's the right fit for that should come talk to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I'm easy to find. Strokon's a very uncommon name, so if you Google me, I'll show up at the top. Um, but yeah, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, my first name dot last name at sacredline.ca. So that's my direct email that'll come through. Really, for Sacred Line, I think it's twofold. Is number one is business owners who are having challenges, who need to have a conversation about changing their focus and changing the direction and having greater results. And it's about going, taking that level of, if things are good, well, how do we go to that next stage? How do we create the structure from a purpose standpoint to understand what you stand for? What does your business stand for? What does your client engagement
Love
model
it.
look like? What are your core values, and how do those relate to your daily activities? If there's a business owner out there who needs support, 100% we're there for you. I would say the flip side to this is to other business coaches. I would love to meet you. Um, I learn a ton from meeting other people. I know that happens. But what we're building with this Sacred Line Coalition is the ability to bring a number of incredibly successful, wonderful business coaches onto one platform so that we can broaden the spectrum where we can have an impact with our
I love
clients.
that.
So,
Yeah, we were talking offline. I think that's a great place because there's a lot of great coaches out there who might
yeah,
be stuck in the stalling part and have never sold before. So being able
right.
to attach into something that's meaningful. So if you're a coach looking to have a great conversation, definitely reach out to Derek. You never know where there's going to be a fit because he's
Cool.
not stalling.
No.
All right, sir. So the last question before I let you go, we're going to jump in my time machine. We're going to go ahead 10 years into the future. When that door
Yeah.
opens, there will be the older you. What's the one thing he's going to thank you for?
Hmm. It's good. I've been trying to process this in the back of my mind, and this is probably a really fun question for you to watch people learn. So, um, I think the gratitude of understanding that break between the power of nothing,
Mm,
understanding and getting to a stage at my life where I did learn that, and I was able to make intentional strategic shifts in my life to improve it.
love
And
it.
I think I'm going to be grateful for that, understanding that the power that nothing has.
Oh, that's pretty cool. That's a great place. That's a great
Thanks.
place to end this conversation on. So thank you again, Derek, for being on episode 96 today. To everybody else, thank you for watching. And until next week, I'm Gene, and this is the LiveCast Conversations With. We'll see you next Wednesday.